Welcome to the Cook Group's podcast, What's Cooking in Litigation, with your host, Brian Wacker. In each episode, you'll meet industry leaders, innovators, and educators in litigation. We'll discuss the latest advancements, efficient practices, and strategic updates. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, cookgrouplegal.com. Now here's the host of What's Cooking in Litigation, Brian Wacker.
Hello, and welcome back to What's Cooking in Litigation. I am your host, Brian Wacker. As you have seen in the past, we have each week been breaking down the latest trends in litigation and chatting with what we think are some of the smartest minds in the industry, including those folks within the Cook Group itself. This is one of I'm more excited for this episode than most because we're getting to talk to some of the younger attorneys in our office, some of the new wave of talent coming through the Cook Group. And this week I'm joined by two folks in our New York office, Paige Schindler and Solomon M. Paige, Solomon, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
All right, great. Well, part of my excitement in getting to talk to you guys is obviously I'm here in beautiful St. Louis, and you can see the river and the Gateway Arch behind me, but I don't get to talk to you guys quite as often because you're up in our New York office. So this is as much of a chance rather for me to get to know you guys as everyone else. So Paige, can you introduce yourself? Tell us about how it was that you came to the Cook Group.
How I came to the Cook Group. So I have been here for about 4 years now. This is my 4th year. And I originally, when I graduated, went into divorce law. And I did that for a little more than a year. And I really, really hated it. It was very sad. Just really, really depressing, talking on the phone with people who are very, just people going through the worst time in their lives. And the thing that made me want to change, areas of law is I was writing this motion for this woman who needed child support and alimony. And so I'm writing this motion. I'm talking about how this woman has no money. She can't afford this, this, and this. The child needs this, this, and that. And I'm writing this motion. I'm, doing a good job, the best I can. And meanwhile, I'm billing $500 an hour to write this motion about how this woman has no money. And I'm like, who am I? Like, I feel like a bad person right now. I hate myself. And so that's when I started, just looking at basically anything that's the opposite of divorce. And I found this place, and I had never even really heard of asbestos before my first interview here. But I've learned a lot since, and now I know probably more than the average person about asbestos.
Excellent. And we'll get into toxic tort in a little bit, but Solomon, how about you? You've got less hair than me somehow, which is really kind of an achievement in and of itself. But I believe you were in-house for a bit before you came here. Is that right?
Yeah. So right before I joined the Cook Group, I was in-house for like a credit union and then a bank before that. But even before that, right out of law school, I was doing immigration law. So kind of like similar in the vein of what Paige used to do in terms of like, like the stories of different clients and just how like sad and how really mind-numbing can be in terms of just like these people going through all these different scenarios and environments. So, but yeah, so like I guess in terms of like how did I find a Cook Group, I just needed to change the scenery and just just happened to be aligned.
Got it. So you guys are both up in the New York office. You've been practicing there, I understand, for all of your careers. I want to get into your work in toxic tort and with Cook Group in just a minute, but what can you tell us about working in New York and sort of for us country bumpkins in the middle of the Midwest? What is it about the New York litigation scene that seems like there's a million lawyers up there and there's always going to be a demand for that?
Well, I've never worked anywhere else. So I've never lived anywhere else. I grew up in New York. My parents are from Brooklyn. I was born in Queens. Like I live in Brooklyn now. So I mean, for me, this is the only place. It's the best place in the world. But I have nothing to compare it to when it comes to, other litigations outside of New York or even living outside of New York. Like this is what my life is and always has been.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always going to be litigation up there. It seems like it's one of the sort of hot spots, or what we call the judicial hellholes all over the country that our firm is. We've got our feet in. Solomon, have you been practicing in New York, or do you practice in other states as well?
Oh, I'm very much like Paige. I was born and raised in New York. I never left. Uh, yeah, I mean New York just I guess it's the sheer amount of people and just circumstances and just how industrialized I guess New York was just in the past just created like this insane amount of litigation. So one of those things where it's just kind of like, oh yeah, there's so much to do here. There's why go anywhere else?
Right. Right. All
One
right.
thing I
Okay.
can say is that when we have to go to court at 60 Center Street, it feels very iconic every time I walk into that courthouse. That's the one from Law and Order.
I was
So
going to
it's
say
like,
Sam
wow, like
Waterston.
here I am, like look at this courthouse in New York. But yeah, that's,
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, then let's dive into a bit more of what it is you guys are doing with us. So, you've been with the Cook Group, basically, Paige, I would say, since about when the Cook Group started. We were about 5 years old. You said you've been with us for 4 years. Obviously, with our Toxic Tort Group up in New York. What can you tell us about sort of how that toxic tort scene has changed, even in the 4 years from when sounds like probably right in the middle of the pandemic to kind of coming out of it? Might be some more trials, more jury trials happening. What have you seen over the last 4 years?
well, over the last 4 years, I think that the main thing that's changed, I mean, I'm not going to name names, but certain clients, you start out, you have maybe 50 cases or so. They're not ID'd a lot, and then suddenly they start getting sued in a million matters and getting ID'd everywhere when the plaintiffs are listing the products in alphabetical order, and they start getting ID'd more. So I think that for certain clients, cases have absolutely boomed. There's been so many cases for clients that we have to hire more people to even get the reporting out. Um, and I've noticed that uh, other manufacturers that used to get identified a lot in depositions, suddenly no one's identifying them anymore. And I don't know if it has to do with the fact that they've gone bankrupt, but they suddenly aren't being named as much anymore. Um, so
I
I,
think
I think that one of the main things that has changed between my hiring and now are the names that come up in depositions and the people who get sued.
I think you're making a very adept observation that I think we've all been making for generations now within the circuit, so to speak. Solomon, I'll ask you the same question, but I'll ask you a little bit more on. We're seeing a lot more down here in the Midwest cases with talc exposure, beyond just what we saw as the normal occupational asbestos exposure. Are you guys starting to see a bit more of that up there as well?
Uh, yeah, I think. I mean, for me, it's kind of centered like the stuff that I handle. It's really just kind of centered around like the occupational stuff. But we've been seeing more and more like an uptick in terms of like litigation in that specific area. And I just wanted to just I don't know. It's one of those. And it's just one of those things. Like it's like the trends are shifting in a way for that. Plaintiffs firms are seeking other avenues. And stuff.
Right. Well, I'll ask you this, and this is sort of a question that I guess you guys probably have a better answer to than I do, but you guys sort of cut your teeth in the age of the pandemic, right? Uh, Taking depositions remotely, attending court remotely. Have you started to see any of that change, or do you think that that is sort of sort of the way of the future because of some of the efficiencies that we figured out we could kind of achieve back then?
Well, I mean, I think that, depositions being taken over Zoom definitely seems a lot. I mean, I've never had a deposition not over Zoom. When I graduated law school, I graduated in May 2020. So my last few weeks of law school, 3L year, were online. And then I was one of the lucky people who took the lockdown bar.
The lockdown.
And
What's that?
yeah, it's the bar exam where everyone took it from home. And they took out all of it was just sort of a different bar. And they like tracked your eye movements to make sure you weren't cheating, and we weren't allowed to use scrap paper. I mean, studying for it was great because I wasn't missing out on any parties or going to the beach or anything, because everybody else was just as trapped inside as I was when I was studying. So that was nice. But, in terms of like depositions and things being held online, even though I've never experienced depositions not online, I feel like it makes a lot more sense to have them over Zoom, especially with, a plaintiff who is sick, probably immunocompromised from, whatever meds they're taking, cancer meds, chemo, and to, have to sit in a room with 40 attorneys asking them a million questions. I think it's probably easier for like the plaintiffs themselves to be able to sit in their house, and, do the deposition from there. I'm sure that there are pitfalls on the defense side from that, like people, what I said before, listing off the manufacturers in alphabetical order sort of thing. It's not really a controlled environment where we're watching and seeing exactly what the plaintiff is seeing. We're only seeing their face within a screen like this, so we don't know what's behind the computer or on their desk. But for the most part, I think I'm very pro Zoom deposition, just for the sake of, really, we all it's just a lot to have to do, and it's a lot of people to have to gather together in a space.
Yeah. You like wearing your pajamas during your depositions too. That's why I like them so much.
Yeah, I like being in pajamas the whole time, and as soon as a client gets ID'd, grabbing my shirt,
on the blazer, sure.
grabbing my shirt and putting it on, and being like, okay.
I'm the same way. You speak to something that, when I was younger and when I was cutting my teeth, we did what was essentially called the circuit, and we traveled all over the country taking these depositions, often in people's living rooms and dining rooms. And what you did gain with that interaction, being face to face, not always sure it was worth it. But Solomon, have you had similar experience to Paige?
I can't really speak to like depositions over Zoom in terms of like never having done that before in person, because I was practicing before COVID, and back then, everything was in person. Going to court, facing opposing counsel across the aisle, and then being in front of the judge and
Right.
stuff like that. So for me, it was adjusting to the Zoom culture in terms of like, what do you mean I can just have my camera off the whole time and just kind of relax, just kick back, take notes, and not worry about physical appearance in a sense. But it didn't take long for me to adjust. But there's still some procedures where like I kind of miss going back in person and just being able to see the judge, see opposing counsel, interact with them, see kind of like mannerisms, their tone and stuff like that as well too. But I can speak to like conferences. I know judges have been in the beginning kind of reluctant to do Zoom, I guess, and then because of COVID, it just kind of drastically was like you have to do it that way or else nothing's going to get done. But then I know recently some judges have been trying to get in-person conferences going. So at least in Nassau County, but up here in New York. But
yeah, I think tell me if I'm wrong. We have what seems to be sort of a collective wanting down here among some of our younger attorneys to be able to get a little more of that experience back, getting back into court, getting back, taking a live deposition, arguing a live motion. Is that something you guys see among your contemporaries, not necessarily with the Cook Group, just with younger attorneys, or do you guys just all seem very happy with where things are right now?
Well, I argue motions live.
Okay.
So that at least is in person. I have argued a motion over Zoom before, and that was kind of weird. But yeah, I feel like motions are definitely something that needs to be argued live in front of a judge because, you got to look plaintiff counsel in the eye when you're beating him. So that's important to me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, my theory on it is that for as much as we can do great work for our clients in any medium, for personal sort of development and personal, growth, there's nothing really beats that sort of, like you're saying, not only being live and being able to make the argument, but then beating them live. Just nothing feels better. So, all right. So then let's kind of, we got a few minutes left. Let's kind of talk a bit more about the Cook Group. So you guys are both incredibly talented. You're young, you're bright. You could probably work anywhere you wanted in the most beautiful, wonderful city in the world with a million law firms. What is it about the Cook Group, Solomon, that brought you here and that what's kept you here?
It's a good question.
It's the most important question because we're all judging you on it. The partners are going to get together later and judge your answer. So,
I guess initially, I do have a friend here who works here, and they kind of sold me on like the atmosphere and just like the people that are here who are just smarter than me, brighter than me, and just I would say just like the environment as well, just like the people in this office. Yeah, it's New York City. Yes, we can be anywhere, but we have something special here, I think, and we have individual people who bring something to the table, and it synergizes really well up here. And it's one of those things where even with like the remote work or hybrid and such like that, you kind of just want to be in your safe zone and be at home and stuff. But I find myself kind of like kind of looking forward to coming into the office and seeing certain people and be like, hey, like how was your day? How was your weekend? Or what are you up to and stuff like that. So I think that's part of the allure and like the my personal attraction to the Cook Group and like the atmosphere and the work environment that's here in New York at least. So.
Sure. That was a pretty good answer, Paige. I think you can do better. Your turn.
Wow. Okay. I do like the people here. I think that that's kind of a big thing that I really like about this firm. My answer is a little different from Solomon's because he often comes into the office and I rarely come into the office. Just because I work a lot better from home. And when I think for the same reason Solomon likes the office are the reasons I can't work from here. I like the people so much that I come in and I will go from room to room to room talking for so long that by the time I finally sit down to start work, more than half the day has passed. I haven't gotten anything done, and I have distracted everyone around me from doing their work. So I really, really like the people here, which is why I have to work from home most of the time. But I really, really like that the firm lets me do that. They can see that the work is getting done and the work is good and I'm doing it from home and it's all working itself out in the end. And I really like asbestos law, like toxic torts to begin with. I think it's very fascinating. I really like the puzzle of figuring out which defenses apply where and who did what and whether someone's testimony is accurate or whether I can get a motion somewhere and figuring out where and what to do and what I need. And so just the legal aspect of it is something I really like. And I just think it's interesting. And I've learned a lot about science too, from learning about asbestos and causation and fibers, and I like science, so I like learning about that stuff. It's always really exciting when something new comes up and I get to learn about something new, like talc, for instance. I just had one of my first talc cases, and I didn't really know anything about it going in. So I read a lot, and it's interesting and learning something new every day.
Yeah. Well, we're all going to have to learn a bit more about talc litigation. I don't think there's any question about that for what may end up lacking in asbestos going forward. I think talc's going to more than make up for it. So it's again, it's one of the great things about working here is that we do happen to be on the cutting edge of that, and we're always prepared for what's coming next. And I do think, joking aside, I'm not sure I would have answered either of your answers differently, other than to say, I do think that walking around from office to office is a very good thing. And I mean that sincerely, because you get a lot of value just popping in, talking to some people a little older than you, maybe younger than you, getting some different perspectives. And, for any young attorney out there, whether it's you guys or otherwise, just because you have to work a little later to make up for that time you spent bumming around, I think there's just a lot of value in that. And you can't really quantify that. So, you may think it's a bad thing, but I actually think it's a great thing. So
It's a great thing for my social life, not a great thing for billing.
Right. All right. So the red timer up in the corner has told me that we are out of time, but I wanted to take one last minute to just thank you guys for joining us. I know this is not an easy sort of venture to get on the internet and put yourself out there for all the world to see, including our clients and everything like that. So we really do appreciate it. We're very proud of our young stable of attorneys, but especially you guys. We've been very happy to be able to highlight you guys today. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right. And that is it for another episode of What's Cooking in Litigation. Thank you again for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's discussion, again, please like the video, subscribe where you find your podcasts, and do whatever you can to help share this. And we will be back soon with another episode. Thanks again.
You've been tuning in to the Cook Group's podcast, What's Cooking in Litigation, with your host, Brian Wacker. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, cookgrouplegal.com. Thank you for sharing this show with others.